morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. How is everyone this morning? Everyone looks like they're pretty exuberant. Esther Jean with a 13-month resub, thank you so much. And Julia for 4 months. Thank you, both of you. All right. That's a great start to the stream. Yay, happy. I also have an announcement to make. I finished my National Novel Writing Month. I did over 50,000 words in 30 days. I finished last night. A day early. Yeah, that's poning it. So I hope you all are doing great. I'm happy. I still have to finish the book, mind you. It still is going to be like 80,000 words. But hey, I'm over halfway done. Yeah, it was cool. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of words. Like a book, a whole book, almost. So yeah, I'm super happy about that. That's good. Finishing a day early just feels like awesome. It feels like today is the day off, even though it's not. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the congrats. I appreciate it. We have Ogre today. Hey, do you want to, let's see. Is this fur? I was saying maybe we paint some fur today. There is fur. It's all around the edges. We could paint wood or fur. I thought we'd take a break from the skin and paint a different part of him today. So do you guys have a preference that you'd like me to paint? We could do leather on the belt. We could do the wood. We could do fur. We could do these little chainmail bits. Do you guys have a preference? Because there's chainmail bits, and there's the belt, there's the fur. We could do some wood. Ooh, mold line. That is a mold line, folks. Cosmetal. Lots of fur. What kind of fur do you want to put on him? This is a mold line that totally evaded my notice, so I'm going to tackle it, and we're going to prime over it. Because it's metal, so... I thought it was a string. Well, maybe, but I guess it is a string. Crap. It was, not very clearly sculpted. However, this is easy to fix. I scraped off some of the texture, but you know what? You can put that right back on with a knife. Ta-da! Not big enough. It's not a big enough model to really do sable crows. Not really in detail. And there's not really enough room, sadly. So, sable, for those of you who don't know, sable's wolf color. If you can do it. Grumpy here. This is sable. Where you've got dark tips on the fur. Yeah, squirrel fur is also like this, actually, Shibi. So you can really, you can suggest it. What the way you would do is just to make the edges dark, which we could probably do. But we wouldn't be able to do it nearly as cool as we have it on Mr. Grumpy here. This is just it's a very complex pattern. Even if you look at it, I had shepherds. I was looking at sable dogs all the time. It's a very complicated pattern. Nobody knows what color saber-tooths were. So, use a real-world animal for reference. Cave bear, I'm going to guess, were grizzlies. But on the 28mm, guys, and actually I should talk about this when I talk about fur, when I do that section of my textures series for my Patreon. I'm doing a $2 series about how much texture you can really do on a 28. And this is a really good thing to talk about for that, because you can't get very specific on type of fur. When you say black bear fur, for this purpose, for a 28 purpose, you're really only saying paint it black. Because black bears are black, except for around their face and, is it underbelly that's lighter? But you wouldn't see any of that on this. You just would get black fur. So mostly when you're doing fur at 28, you're not actually caring about, what animal it is specifically, unless you're trying to suggest a certain texture. Because there's only so much you can do. So I've got, people want cave bear. So that's just brown. And tawny probably, I'm going to tell you, Turgeon, tawny's going to be a bad idea. You know why? Do you know why? I know a lot of you are just tossing ideas out there, but tawny would be a awful idea. Tawny is golden colored like lion. So why is that a bad idea? Well, gee, remember this color wheel thing? Yeah, same as the skin. And it would be just a little bit off, right? Because the skin is really rich and has a lot of very rich orangey tones to it. So yeah, it would totally disappear. It would clash worse. Because if you do it, yeah, so always think of your color wheel. Always think of contrast. Contrast should be your first thing to think about. You might be able, yeah, so like doing a leopard pattern on this would be like, well, one, the fur is kind of sculpted a little more coarse, but doing like something like that that's tawny would be a bad choice just because it'd be hard to make it stand out. You'd have to really go light with it. Like you'd have to make it a really creamy pale version, which we could do. But we'd want to definitely, you have to find a way to make it look different, right? Something blue-gray. That's an interesting idea, Cornico. Pink faux fur. Ha 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 ha. Blue-gray would be, that might be interesting. Raccoon is also a sable fur, which we don't have a lot of room to do. Hello, Bergala. Thank you with that Prime sub. Half a sub-anniversary. Nice. I don't know if I would do dyed fur. I mean, you could, Chibi. You could if you wanted to. He has a muted skin tone, so gray blue or blue gray might be actually, I hadn't thought of that, but it might be a pretty good solution. The more I think about that, the more I like it. And that would be kind of in line with like squirrel fur or, you know, something that's a little bit bluish gray. Again, golden would be a bad idea, Twisted Noma, because what's the skin color? Gold. So we can't go, if we go too close to this skin color, we have to make it really, really pale, like an off-white almost, like a pale yellow cream. You could, yeah, you could absolutely go, because the skin is more of a medium tone. Like if you really wanted to figure out if that's right, that's when you whip out your grayscale, Robin. And we kind of put it over him and see what he is. So I'm going to say his skin is around, yeah, it's around value 7. So that means that you could go white with it. You've got essentially between there and there, you've got 4. So I would say that you could go much lighter with it. Darker colors are going to give you more contrast. But I think I like that blue-gray idea. We'll even try to kind of sable it. How about that? We'll see what we can do. Usually when you're dealing with kind of a blue-gray fur, and you've got like kind of a sable pattern, it'll go to pale. And you may want to go to that, like a creamy white, right, on the edges. So maybe we'll do a creamy, we'll see if we can do it. The problem is the belt. We'll have to suggest that creamy transition somehow. This will be interesting. All right, let's do this. Oh no, is there stream issues? Yeah, always ask yourself, okay, so the first thing, this is actually great, Twisted Oma. So this is a lesson, right? This is the lesson. Always, the first thing you have to ask yourself when you're choosing a color is what is already on the model and how can I go different? So instead of just tossing out there an idea when you're looking at your own minis, stop, look at what you already have or what you've already chosen and ask, how can I go different from there, but still make it look cool and I like the color. So, good. Good. All right. Everybody else is good. All right, good. Because I'll check my speed test if a lot of people start having issues. So blue, gray, blue. So our best cold grays, sadly, were canceled long ago. Stormcover and its friends. Stormcover, Icy, and Coldstone were the cold grays that got kind of nixed. So now we have to mix. I think I want to go. Usually when I'm doing a blue-gray, maybe we'll use Radiant Ashen. That's almost the same. I think I want to go a little darker. No, not Stone. I thought I had, I guess I only have Cloudy. I thought I had Stormy around, but apparently I decided Cloudy was good enough. Yeah, it is. It is Chain. We're going to do that at some point as well. It's a double sub-anniversary song, Robin. Double sub-anniversary. And then it's got to go to triple sub-anniversary. When I get to quadruple, I'm screwed. Chibi, we were using the Ogre skin from this Dungeon Dwellers line. So we used Ogre skin, but we also, I'm going to fix the focus in a second here, hold on. We also mixed that Ogre skin with a human skin tone to make it look more natural, because this is very, very yellow. And although we wanted to go first edition Ogre with him, which is the yellow skin, we did not want to go too crazy on it. I think this is a doable humanoid skin tone. I think it's actually fairly, as naturalistic as you're going to make a yellow skin tone look. But the reason that it's not totally obnoxious is that we mixed other skin tone in. And then we shaded it with the new Oxide Brown from the Kickstarter. Oh, you could also use, if you have the old Ruddy Brown from HD, or you could use a little bit of Ruddy Leather, 9109, something like that. Harvest Brown, Tarnished Copper, any of those would work. If you go back and watch the other streams, Chibi, I'll talk about it, because pretty much every stream on this guy up to now has been skin tones, working with this dramatic skin tone. Oh, where is it, Robin? What sub did you do? Did you sub? I didn't see it. Hold on. Did I miss Robin's sub? I did not see I don't see your sub. You have to sub during the show to get the song, Robin. Oh, there you go. There you go. All right. I had to go back. It was eclipsed back in the start of it. Okay. Double subiversary, double subiversary, double subiversary. Happy double subiversary. There. Yeah, I just have to check. I always have to check. I'm not going to sing at the drop of a hat unless there's a sub. All right. We're going to go, usually when I'm doing a blue-gray is I'm going to mix in ashen, because I don't want it to go, I'm going to start with a already grayish blue. But let's look around. I don't know. I'm feeling... Do I have anything else here I'd like to use? Everything else is a little bit too much. Oh, that could be fun. Maybe that? Yeah, let's use, do you guys have the Expo colors? You could also use, if you had a default, you could use Ashen Blue. But I'm going to use Hardsuit. It's a teal. I'm going to try that and see if I like it. We're going to go teal with this baby. You could also use a tiny bit of Shark Bite if you have it. Or Templar Blue. But I think I want to try, actually I'm going to put Ashen away. I'm going to get out Templar. And I'm going to try these guys and I'm going to see which one I like better. Yeah, our Reaper's art director, Ron Hawkins, is a big fan of first edition humanoid skin colors, like first edition D&D Chibi. So that's why we've got the yellow, the golden skin tone here, because that's what color ogres were in first edition. That's why that ogre skin color exists. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to start with 4 drops of Cloudy Gray. And I'm going to mix in 1 drop of Hardsuit Blue to 1 and 1 drop of Templar Blue to the other. And we're going to see which one I like better. Yeah, turning it off and on again. All right, so we'll do Hardsuit on the left. I actually like Hardsuit a little bit better than the Shark Bite for this. You want to start with a color that's already a little grayed out, because blues can be very potent and they can easily overwhelm your gray. We don't want a really blue color. We want a gray that's got a slide toward blue. Did you turn it off and back on again? Yeah, totally. That sounds pretty much it, Nomad Zeke. All right. All right. We have our colors. Our colors are coming together. So let's mix these suckers up and see which one we like. Where is my horrible mixing brush? Here it is. There it is. I've got all these colors. I was a bad Ann and did not put everything away yesterday that I was playing with for my Patreon videos that I was shooting. There. That's better. Clear out the area. We have a little bit too much clutter. Boom, boom. I actually really like this hard suit blue, this teal. It's really pretty. I should use it for something. So we want a little bit of a hint. Yeah, all right. That's pretty. I like that. I'm going to try the Templar too and see how that works. Yeah, that's a little bit, it's not quite as lively because it doesn't have all the large amount of green. It's a little more natural though. So the teal has a little more life to it and the blue is a little bit more natural. You can see that kind of turn here. Let's put black base here. But you can see that that's warmer. These are very similar colors. This is a little bit more kind of drab, kind of neutral. And that's what blue tends to do when you mix it with gray, is you tend to go that direction. I'm going to put a little bit of this teal one on just to see if I like it. Now the other thing we have to worry about is that we do have chainmail here on his loincloth. But I kind of like that. I think I like that actually. Yeah, I think I do. I think we're going to go with the teal one. So hard suit blue. 1-4 with cloudy gray. So yeah, we are going to have to make sure that the chainmail really pops because we're using a color that's very similar up against the back of it, but that's all right. We'll just, we'll work with this. So first we're going to base coat all of it with this. Then, and actually we're going to bring the edge up toward a creamy white, just like a natural critter would have. So that will help mitigate the fact that it's a very similar color to what we're going to do our chainmail. Chainmail is pretty, the chainmail actually, the way that we're going to probably move the chainmail away from this color, Bergala, is we're going to make it rusted out. We're going to tarnish some of it. By adding some rust streaks, because he is an ogre, and it's all ripped up, we will be able to move it away from the surrounding teal. So I plan to go more warm than cold on that. But yeah, totally valid on the whole. The teal pushes you away and lets you go colder. Because you've got a bit of warmth with this. Now I'm going to go, let me get my other brush out. Let's make sure we put this all over the place. Yeah, I was thinking, especially because I just put out a cool PDF for my Patreon yesterday that I've been wanting to do forever, which is Colors of Corrosion. So colors, MSP colors for doing rust and verdigris and tarnish on all sorts of different metal. That's patreon.com/paintingbig if you are interested. We do a lot of really cool stuff on there that I just really can't do very well on stream. Lets me do stuff like PDFs, which is what this was. And yeah, if you come on over, a lot of you are already my patrons, and I appreciate every one of you who let me do this kind of stuff. But I just put that up for the $10 tier yesterday. I'm going to start doing more PDFs this coming year because I spent a couple of years doing a lot of video. And I really do enjoy PDFs. I feel like there's some things you can teach that way a little more effectively. All right, so we're going to make everything this grayed out teal at first, but then we're going to bring in other colors. What I really want to do, though, is set up at least a trace of this coolness up against the skin here, so that even if I come back in and lighten up the edges or darken it down, I still have a trace of that blue to help kind of provide a visual barrier between the skin and the fur. And also it helps to make sure the viewer understands that this fur is the same as this fur. So even if I lighten it up in parts, it will still carry the effect. Can be difficult when you've got a big belt, you've got a tiny bit of fur poking out the top, and then you've got more fur on the bottom. If you want to do the edge of the fur as a different color, then it can be hard to kind of give the viewer information that the fur is indeed part of the same thing. Our eyes tend to read two different colors as two different objects unless there's obvious cues that it's the same surface. Yeah, I try to put a lot of really cool stuff on the lower level tiers because I know I put those lower level tiers on my Patreon just because I know that a lot of people are on a budget. And so I'm trying to put a lot of very useful stuff on the lower tiers. But $10 tier also gets some really cool stuff because they are $10 tier. So this is one of those PDFs I've been waiting for forever to write. So we're going to get this all in here. We're going to worry about shading and highlighting after we've got our base coat down. So much more of a traditional approach than I did up on the top with the skin. Oh, I missed some of the underside of there. Oh, so we've got lots of fur. We could even do some pattern back here if we wanted to. We have enough room to do more of that. If you guys want to try a sable, we can do it on the back. He'll have a sable butt. There we go. And we've also got skulls over here to worry about. So whatever we do, we probably want to make sure we've got a pretty sharp demarcation in color between the skulls and the fur, which was actually a good thing that we didn't go with like a polar bear or a light colored fur, because then we would have had a hard time keeping it different from the bone. So actually we made probably a good choice. I mean, black fur is also always a great choice for this sort of thing. It works the same way that the black skirt on this guy works, in that it doesn't distract. It still gives you some highlight opportunities, but it does not distract the viewer from the important part of the model. Because you want people looking at all the cool detail that you're putting onto those elaborate shoulder pads and ram fists and everything. And you don't want people just staring at the leather waist, or the fur waist in this case. You want people to notice the stuff where you're spending a lot of time and attention. Sable isn't always soft. When you guys say sable, you probably mean the animal, but what I'm thinking is the color pattern, which can be found in wolves, for example. Fur is probably fairly soft, given, it's not as, it's softer than leather, and, but not necessarily softer than cloth. All right, so we'll see how this works. And as I start darkening this down and getting it more contrast, I think it will work better. And that belt is going to be over there. I'm just going to make sure I've got all the parts. Yeah, all right. So now I got to think about what I'm going to shade this with. And it's got to be a neutral and a dark. So I'm probably going to go with brown liner because I don't want to overwhelm it. I could also use Death Knight Black, which would really cold it down. But I think for this guy, because I'm going kind of like interesting, realistic with his patterns, like his skin tones and everything, or actually it's pretty realistic highlighting. I don't want to go too cartoony, and I want everything to go together. So since I'm using a darker brown to shade his skin tones, I'm going to actually reach for brown liner to shade this. It's going to kill the teal a little bit in the shadows, but it's also going to be easier to do the fine brush strokes that we want to do if we're really trying to suggest some sable. So next is shading and markings and then some highlights. Brown liner is a good neutral shader for pretty much everything. Everything under the sun. And I have not been using it a lot lately. I've been using a lot of walnut instead, but for this model, I think I want to bring in the liner for the stuff around the waist. So I'm going 4-to-1 with the liner to keep it a little bit more solid. Because if I want it to make the suggestion of sable hairs, I need it to be thinned so that I can get really thin lines out of it. And that's actually a lot of the limitation for making textures, I find, is that, you know, you really, if you're going to do really fine textures, you got to practice your brush loading, your paint consistency, and your brush unloading to get that control that you need to do fine detail. Because textures, especially like finer textures like sabling, where you have very little room and you've got to kind of nail the look, they're very hard to do if you don't have correct brush loading and unloading and paint consistency. You've got to have those skills to get the really fine look you need, because on 28, everything's going to be smaller. And in a way, you get off easier because you're just really kind of roughing it in. You just want to suggest the effect. You don't have to like do it to the point where Mr. Grumpy's fur ruff was done. But it's also harder because you have less room. It's a lot harder to suggest the effect that you're going for in a way that people are going to understand it. Understand what you're trying to do. So I'm going to block in some shading real quick to get this separated out. I did the lining on the top, so we're okay there. But I want this underside to be dark. Still have my gray open so that if I overdo it a little bit, I can do a quick wet blend to blend it in. Hey, Masara, 22 months, dang. It is sub day. It's resub day. Thank you so much. We're doing fur today. Kind of a blue, like, bluish sably fur. Maybe it's winter wolf fur. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as I'm not painting him really as a winter critter, though. Chances are this is going to be the coldest thing on this whole model. Everything else will go warm. It does still satisfy the Sergio rule. So the Sergio rule is everything on the model should be either warm or cool to give it better unity. But this blue, even though blue is a cool color, this blue still qualifies because it is a warm blue. So even though it is a cool color, it is a warm version of its cool color. So technically, I think it still fits. That is the one of the Sergio rules. Now we're getting that bottom side of that belt just real quick. We'll be using that probably to transition some darker colors. I'm going to muck around with this a little bit. Once I set in all these shadows, then we'll talk about what we're actually trying to accomplish with this effect. Because you should always stop and think about what you're actually trying to portray before you try to portray it. Instead of just kind of going and kind of jumping in without really thinking about it and then having to adjust yourself until you finally kind of hit close to what you had in mind in the first place. Which, you know, given, I do paint like that sometimes. Because that can be fun. But I'm feeling organizational today. Actually, a lot of my time blocks today are for organizing December. especially since I finished a little early on some of my other stuff. I have to get the paint along video up, but then I'm pretty good to just map out my time for the coming month. So just a real light line around the chainmail just to kind of make sure that it stands out. We will be doing a little bit more shading there because the chainmail overhangs the fur, so we will be doing that. And if you feel like lining a little bit, it's never like, I feel like sometimes if you're aligning and you haven't painted the things on either side, you're just really going to lose the lining. That's been my experience with it. But sometimes I like to do it just to block things out in my head. So as long as you understand that pre-lining, as they call it, is most often just going to get covered up and you're just going to have to line again anyway, or at least emphasize things a little bit more, even though you're already lined, just to understand that most of the time it's good practice though. So, and you've got this nice white primer, so it can look really good to like pre-line. Just to set all your details out, so you can if it'll help you think about your color schemes more, you're welcome to do it. Just always know, don't spend a lot of your energy if you pre-line on trying to keep those lines. Just paint, and if you have to reline after, oh well. There, we got a little skull face. Alrighty, let's get this blocked in over here, and then we can begin trying to portray a little bit of a sable-y thing. And of course, the main reason to do it this way, to line when you've got one part painted, is you can always blorf onto the other side where it's still just primed. In this case, I can actually put some water in this and use that as a quick shader on the skulls. Turn it into a bit of a wash. Even a little bit on the barrel there. So if your lining gets glumpy, just turn it into a wash. Then it's underpainting. It's no longer a blorf. And you'll look like you meant to do it all along. It's the cat tactic, really, to turn your blorf into a wash. Your lining blorf, specifically. Just pretend you're a cat. You meant to do that all along, even though you look extremely silly. So tomorrow is December. Does that send any panic attacks? Any holiday panic attacks in anybody? It does seem like it took me a long time to get through November, but that's because I was writing a book. And there are always times when you're in the middle of a big project where time seems to slow down when you really just wish the project was over. I have not bought any Christmas presents, but my family is really, especially now the kids are getting older, is really more into the gift cards, especially because we seldom are in the same state when the holidays arrive. Oh, the new Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, I have not gotten into back into Final Fantasy. I considered it, but then I realized that I really wanted to write a book in November, and that I have a lot of other projects on my plate right now. So computer games, I've been playing the Path of Exile League with David, and that's enough. Plus, I don't think I could get David to play Final Fantasy 14 with me. And even if he did, he would outlevel me and be totally farther than me. Because that's the way he gets really into computer games and spends a lot of time on them. And I don't. Like we were talking about our differences last night, which was funny. Because he's like, the difference between you and me is that when I have free time, I just want to play video games or consume content or, relax. And when you have free time, you want to work on a project. And I'm like, that is exactly it. I am that person. When I have free time, I turn it into not free time. Ah, yeah. Yeah, David was raiding with WoW, and but then they kind of stalled out on the heroic version of the content, and he was just like, you know what? Not feeling it, taking a break. He might go back to raiding with when the new patch drops at some point for the final raid. So I get it. I have been tempted to go back to Final Fantasy XIV. I tried it a long time ago and liked it, but they're such time suckers. And especially there's a lot of projects with our dog club, with our Shiloh Shepherds organization that are coming that I'm really excited about. So kind of just reorienting and putting my time into that. All right, just going to block this in. It's really fun to do washes on wood grain because it just shows up so well. So I'm just kind of defining these. Mess around. I mean, who cares if you're supposed to be like painting one thing or another thing? If you want to sit and do a wash, do it. Oh God, Dirty Dungeons. Yep. Yes, there was drunken raiding back in my my raiding days as well. We also had a shots night. I cannot do that anymore. My guts can't tolerate the alcohol anymore. So I'm glad that those days are gone. Okay, so now, what are we trying to do here? We are trying to do sable. Sable fur clumps. It tends to clump. And so you get some definition. This is very fine. But here, he's got this old ratty, fur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of look at the way it's sculpted. I'm going to take a mixture of my blue and my blue teal and my walnut. And I'm going to start kind of suggesting different clumps of fur. Just by kind of outlining some of these different parts that I feel like might be good candidates. And it doesn't really matter where I put them. There's an obvious one. Sometimes it'll seem like there are some areas that are sculpted together. And so you can concentrate on those. Like this little part at the bottom here. So you see what I'm doing? This is why I'm saying taking a little bit of time to kind of outline what you're thinking of doing, like what effect you want to do. So to effectively do a sable, the first step is to isolate the fur into clumps. Even when it wasn't sculpted that way, especially when it wasn't sculpted that way. And again, I'm doing kind of a half and half mix of my teal color. Where do I want to cut that? I think I want to cut it here. And make them irregular. Don't make them go in a grid. Try to mess it up a little bit. And the reason that we're going to do this clumpy thing is that we want to be able to suggest darker tips on these clumps of fur. Yeah, the joys of self-employment, everything is a project. The dog club sucks up my extra time a lot. Well, in my writing now, Julie. Since I'm trying so hard with that right now. With the submitting and the getting these books written and stuff. So a lot of my focus is on the writing, and then the dog club is my nonprofit. So I do that. I'm on the board. I have board meetings, committee meetings. I help develop the website. Yeah, all this stuff. My quote unquote free time goes into. But that's how I enjoy spending my free time. Like, David's nice because he does make me sit and just do fun stuff. Like, playing Path of Exile is fun with him. So, like, that's just, I guess part of my brain is like, this is a waste of time. But it's also, just detox time. So, I am the kind of person who will like burn out with overwork if I'm not stopped. So it's good that we paint together and just do stuff for fun. Just going to darken down underneath the arm here, just like we did on the side above it. Hey there, Moonlight. How's it going? Oh, Minecraft. Oh, that's nice, Quindy. Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying the Path of Exile thing. And my character is really good this time, so I'm finally understanding the whole, you know, spending vast amounts of in-game currency to get my character upgraded so she can blow up monsters even faster. I'm finally getting that. I love that they like make us sound like popcorn when they die, like popping popcorn. My character is a fire person, so I'm enjoying it. All right, so now we've got these clumps of fur, and we're going to actually come up here on the top. We're going to do the same thing up at the top of the fur. So, and these are easy because usually, like, you can kind of see that there are naturally sculpted clumps here. So coming up here and sculpting in some clumps is pretty darn easy. Again, you want to kind of vary the size of them. And we're going to bring over a shadow under the arm just like we did on the other side. Well, you know what, Chibi? That's better anyway. At least then you have something to show for it. That's always been my problem. Like, I went through a big phase when WoW launched where I put a lot of hours into online games with my friends. And it was fun and all, but I had nothing to show for it at the end. And so for me, painting is always the hobby that at least it will give me something that I can enjoy afterwards. That's my big problem with video games and spending a lot of time on them. I don't mind playing them because they do allow me to just detox and relax and regenerate my creative self. But so now take these and take your brown liner and start to kind of like really bring out the ends and edges of these clumps. Mostly the ends. Because the tips of the fur on a sable are what is dark. There's multi-bands of color usually, but the tips are definitely dark. And it's going to look a little messy, but that's okay because it's where you come in with the highlights that you get more precise with it. So just go with it. Go with it and try to see that. See, that's starting to look pretty cool. Oh, Moonlight is Crow's Nest. Yes, nice. That's super awesome. So we're going to just paint. Bring these dark strands in. And you want to be moving your brush, as you can see, in the direction of the fur so you get those kind of lines, those brush strokes. And kind of emulate the shapes of the fur. I may or may not do a lighter outside edge on this fur. We'll see. We'll kind of assess it as we go. So that's looking pretty cool. Hello. Nice to meet you, Nick Knack. Cool, Germany. Excellent. My forebearers came from Germany. My ancestors. My maiden name was Fairster. We are, if you haven't encountered us before, Knick Knick Knack, it's, we do this every weekday morning. And I do a different model pretty much every day, but we do it like a 6 model rotation. So we're working on 6 different models so we can cover a whole bunch of different topics. And we slowly finish each of them. So we do a different model every day, and then we loop around back to the front of the rotation. So this is our Ogre, and we're also working on a Tiefling and a Wizard and a Gnoll Pirate and a Bronze Golem. And a bust. We just started the new bust from ReaperCon, a pirate bust. So it's our first bust that we're going to paint on stream. She's actually not here for me to grab because I am priming her. But yeah, she'll be Thursday. Tomorrow is the Tiefling. So when you get down to the bottom, make it irregular. See this? Where you're bringing out the tufts of the fur. But you can see how, in order for this to really work, can you guys see how you need some room? You need a big space of fur. When you try to do this on the front, it's going to be a little less successful because there's not going to be as much room for the pattern to really show up. 7 p.m., yes. Oh, Dungeons and Doggies. I love my Dungeons and Doggies. Those are so cool. I backed the new Kickstarter, but I really need to put some paint on my existing Dungeons and Doggies. I really like them. I'm a big dog person, so we're looking to get our new puppy next year, maybe. My old dog passed away last year. And I can't wait. Alrighty, so we've got that fur going. But yeah, Knick Knack Knack, if you have any, I'm painting obviously to a slightly higher standard here, but if you have any questions that are more new questions that you have, feel free to ask, because we get a lot of new people on this show. And so I never mind answering more new person questions, because if you are wondering it, then probably other people in the audience are also wondering it. So if you ask, then everybody can benefit. So any questions about paints or brushes or thinning your paint or what palette you use or stuff like that, I am happy to talk about. Don't worry about distracting me from the stream. We are made to be distracted on this stream. Part of the point is to educate. And I do spend a lot of time interacting with chat on the stream, and that's kind of the point. So feel free. All right, so here again, we're just trying to break up, but see how we have a lot less room to break up the fur. So it's really not showing us a pattern. So do you guys see what I mean now when I said with Sable, you really do need a lot of room to make it look good, look so that, you really meant to do this. You really do. And the less room you've got, on the front here, the less the pattern will be evident. Good, excellent. Yeah, I wasn't as into those. I mean, the sculpts are nice, Kroniko, but what makes me hesitate is the plastic. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same plastic as the Dungeons and Doggies. Because I'm not, I feel like they could go a little bit better with that. It's my one thing with them. I'm spoiled by the Bones USA. Absolutely spoiled. So we're going to make these come out in little tufts. But see, we have a lot less room here. So got a little hair. I don't have a dog to shed on my models, but I shed. So you've got that coming in. Just bringing out a little bit more of each of these little chunks on the top. Right, yeah, that's the thing. I was not willing to go in on the Magical Academy because I was not confident in the quality of the plastic. The doggies are cute enough that I'll paint them anyway. But I'm interested. I mean, hopefully they'll evolve. I mean, they've got a really good thing going, so there we are. So we're getting really nicely defined here. We're almost ready to start bringing in highlights. Clumpy fur, like at the top here, can be very hard to do. Often suggesting strands on it is difficult because it tends to clump. So you may be thwarted in attempting to make it look good or like convincingly like fur. So sometimes you just kind of have to say okay and just kind of go do the best you can with it on a fur bit like this. Like I said, the more room you have, the better you can make your fur look. Nice, imagine. Yeah, there are a lot of Kickstarters that I'm like kind of like intrigued by, but then I'm not sure. Plus we've got a lot. We ordered Bard Sung and we're still waiting on that. So, and we don't have the time to paint on the miniatures board games we've got, so. Although it helps when the models are good quality. David's painted a little bit of his Zombicide, Black Plague. He's better about it than I am. He's willing to like put more time. He's painted a lot of the Kingdom Death Monster stuff we've got. There. All right, I think the fur is pretty blocked. Got to put the dark edges on this one. We had Dreadball, like I had Dreadball back in the day, and I was disappointed in the quality of the plastic. That is a Mantic game, right? Game was fun. But like I said, I'm spoiled forever by Bones USA, so now I want all my plastic to be like that. And to be fair, the technology is moving, so maybe the industry will slowly adopt it. All right, get the edges done on this one. We're going to do these edges dark first. See if I like it. If I feel like going lighter with one of the edges, we can. I'm going to get over here and get some of my dark again. I really want to finish out all my shading before I start touching the highlighting and bringing everything up. I think we'll go with that. Yeah, Dreadball was a really good game. Yeah, I had fun with it. I had the teleporting turtles. And I named them after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Which is probably what everybody does, but who cares? All right, now I'm going to bring in a mixture of the blue and the gray. Just to bring in a little bit more of detail, and then we are going to bring a bunch of details in. All right, let's rock that. I can always go back and add more shading There has to be a point where I stop shading. Except I'm trying to make all these details. When it's clumpy fur, because it's like on an ogre and it's probably matted and, you know, awful, it's like just hard to really bring it out to looking crisp. It's probably a mistake to make it look crisp. Alrighty, now let's take our nice teal and make a new puddle of it with some off-white in it. And I may need to mix up a whole new puddle too. I think I'm going to use bleached linen here. It's going to neutral out the blue a little bit. All right. Need pokey tool. So the last part of December, I will not be here. My family is having one last big family vacation, and we're going down to Puerto Vallarta together. My dad wanted to have a big family to do before my niece Lauren went off to college. So I'll be on a beach after Christmas for a couple days. So the last week of this month, geez, this like is just not wanting to have paint come out of it. Pardon me while I attempt to shake it up better. Maybe Nottingham just has the facilities that people are looking for. Yeah, this is just clogged well and good. All right, well, if your bottle is clogged well and good and the pokey tool is not solving it, there's something going on. So time to take off the top and do it the other way. So let's move this, take the pokey tool, kind of fish around, feel. You've probably got a glob of paint. And I'm going to actually put this whole thing into my paint water and kind of scrub it off. Clear it out. Just going to make my paint water very dirty, but we're almost to we only have half an hour left. There, we'll see how this does. Yeah, because sometimes your paint just is not coming out of the bottle, so you have to like tackle it from a different way. And then I'm going to kind of look at this and see. Yeah, looks like it's pretty clear now. So we shall attempt to make this work. So take your bottle, reseat. So you hear the click. Clean it off. Kind of press your paint. Make sure the air is moving. If you can press the bottle and hear the air puff, then you're good. We're gonna reshake this sucker. Yeah. Yeah. It should be good. I don't know. I haven't gone out of the country for a while, so I'm a little nervous about it, but not too bad. So I'm gonna do two things here. I'm gonna take bleached linen, which is not working. Haha, we have successfully cleared our clog. And I transferred some of this over to here, and this got a little bit of gray in it because I was mixing my color on the side. So this is a little bit darker. I'm putting a drop in there, I'm actually gonna take hard suit blue and do a little bit more of a blue color over here. Maybe one drop of that, one drop of the cloudy gray, to intensify the color. And the reason is that we're going to be putting this color on much smaller areas. So if we want our bluish, tealish color to really show up, then we want to do that. We want to actually make it just a little more intense. And because it is a smaller area, it shouldn't look unnatural. But it should allow us to keep our tealy color. That's funny, Gringo. Yeah, it's really, the ocean is really cold out here in the summer too. It was an unpleasant surprise. It like gets to be 50 degrees. I'm just like, yeah. Who would go into that? But the surfers love it, so. So yeah, going, when we go to Mexico, it'll be with my brother and his kids and his wife and mom and dad. And then me and David. Oh, that really bleached out that color. You know, I had very little left of my initial mix. So let's just go and remix that. But yeah, the ocean is quite cold here. There we go. That's a little better. So you can see this one is darker. This one is lighter and warmer and tealer. So we're going to try to make that work. I may switch to a smaller brush. We'll see. So I want a little bit of my original color just to make sure it's pretty solid here. And because I was a little bit messy with my blocking in of shadows, this is my chance to take this color, my base color, and kind of reset it. Make things a little neater. It's much easier to neaten up something when you're using highlights. And the reason is that your highlight color almost always has white in it. So it's going to cover really well even when it's thinned. And this makes it much easier to get a crisp line to try to tighten up details than if you try to do it with the dark. I'm going to grab some of my highlight and see how this goes. So this actually might not be strong enough to really show me brush strokes. So I think I'm going to actually add another drop of bleached linen. Yeah, I'm used to, like when we were kids, the ocean that we saw was typically the southern Atlantic and Florida and the Gulf Coast, which is much warm. So it was a weirdness about the ocean and how cold it was out here. All right, so I made some more bleached linen on there, and yeah, now I can see my brush strokes. I want to be able to see these brush strokes so I can suggest strands of fur. Or at least clumps of fur, because at this scale, you're not really suggesting a strand, you're really suggesting just a clump, a smaller clump in the middle of your bigger clump of fur, which is how fur tends to go. So in order to make these bigger clumps more complex, we want to be able to bring in some of these sculpted clumps as their own thing. And continue to suggest the texture. I wish our climate had more rain. That's my big thing. Given we're in the middle of a drought right now. But I kind of really hope the rain comes back. I mean, it's nice to walk outside and it's always beautiful, but the downside is you kind of get anxious about the fact that everybody's using a ton of water and there's no new stuff coming down. That's why a lot of people have very minimalist desert style landscaping here. Even more so than I see in like LA. Because our climate may be kind of, I don't know, our climate may be more Texas, but we're more like northern. It's very similar to North Texas in some ways. Not quite as hot in the summer, but not as much rain. I do miss the rain. So again, try to suggest little strands of fur. Yeah, I wish. I mean, there is some shipping of water between some states. Some states have deals. Yeah, we are very, very, very droughty. We had one nice rain earlier in the fall. One nice couple days. But otherwise, we have not had a lot of anything. So, just emphasizing the texture more. We're going from a sculpt that really didn't give us a lot of detail on the fur to actually painting in the detail. Oof. That's the city only, Shadow Raven. The city only. We are the South Bay. So we are south of the peninsula. The Santa Cruz Mountains are to the south and west of us. So we're in a little bit of a rain shadow. But even then, like, the rain has just not been as much as it has been. San Francisco's water comes from, like, the reservoir outside of Yosemite, mostly, I thought. Like, there's a lot of mist and cold and rain, but there's nothing to catch it on the city. But yeah, down here in Silicon Valley, it's much drier. It's much hotter in the summer months, much warmer. There we go. So you can see how I'm bringing long, light strands of fur to suggest the texture here. And you can see how it's easier to do it when you've got a lot more room. Yeah, when I first moved in with David, we lived in the city. We lived in Noe Valley, and I think I remember him telling me it was they got their water from outside of the city. But a lot of California is in drought. So here again, we don't have a lot of room to suggest what we want. So we'll get our light colors and we'll do the best we can. Well, that's because Arwen isn't totally, I guess she was supposed to be, maybe it's Arwen being pissy about, like, not having as good a character arc as Eowyn. Maybe that's why Storm Arwen was bad. Although I do think it's funny that now popular fantasy names, like, where's Storm Cersei from Game of Thrones? Like, I bet that's going to be a thing. Like, they're so stuck for hurricane names that they're like, we're just going to take them from fiction. Or has there already been a Storm Cersei and I missed it? Mountain View and San Jose and all of Silicon Valley is in the valley, so we are between the dry brown hills to the east and the green, furry, forested hills with the redwood forests to the west and south. But yeah, there's just a very big difference between San Francisco and where I am. We're about 35 to 45 minutes out of San Francisco. And there's a huge climate difference. It's very interesting, really. So just with whatever room you have, try to suggest strands. On the front here, it's just not much room. But yeah, we're very dry here. I would like a little rain. I'm hoping to get some rainy days coming up. It was foggy this morning, but it didn't stick. There we are. So that's not bad. It's not bad on the front here. Seriously, be pretty bad, but we all know that Arya is the real badass. So if Storm Arya turns up, then that's when to run. All right, I'm going to bring in my dark up on top again, because the nature of Sable is to be banded, so we'll bring up some dark strands down from the top. We may go up to an off-white. So again, not much you can do here. The front is okay. It's not as cool looking as the back because, again, we have no room. So the best we can do is just keep the color going. Yeah. Kitten rescue place. Yeah, and then you end up taking home a kitten. I know how these places, John and Farabano, have taught me. It's all good, all fun and grins and giggles till they put a kitten in your hands, and then you don't want to give it back. And next thing you know, you're buying a litter box. That's true enough, Shadow Raven. Whereas Storm seriously will blow up a cathedral to prove a point. Alrighty. So Knick-Knack, there's a lot of different types of plastic on the market. Games Workshop uses styrene, which gives excellent, it kind of like lets you fit parts together really well. It's very precise. It's very crisp detailed, but it has a problem with doing more natural textures sometimes, which could just be, honestly, the sculpting, but I'm not sure. Some plastic it doesn't hold detail very well. So the details aren't very fine and crisp. And I'm not sure what kind of plastic that is that like Dreadball was using. But it's just like not quite as crisp as like say metal is or resin. Like resin figures can hold probably the best detail. So resin figures can like hold very fine, like these little flowers down here at the bottom of the model I've been working on. She can have a very nice face, things like that. The Bones USA plastic is the same. This is what Reaper is using for Bones USA. It's the same kind of plastic that Gundam kits are done in, I believe. So it holds very good detail. Like the little rat, I can see his or her face, and there's just nice crisp detail on the model. Even though this is a very simple model, everything it looks very good. Bones Black is almost as good. Bones Black is almost as good. This guy is Bones Black. That's a more of a PVC, kind of like HeroClix and some of the other miniatures games use. It's a little softer than the Bones USA, and because it's a little softer, it doesn't quite hold the detail as fine, but it's pretty good. You can see the little details here. And then original Bones plastic is better for big stuff. This is like real PVC. So for big things, it's good enough to see big details, but for very, very fine details, sometimes you see a little bit of loss. And that's the same with like D&D minis and stuff like that. They tend to be done in PVC as well. So there's a big difference across all. Most people before would have said that resin and metal kept the sharpest detail, the best detail. And then some of the plastic, the soft gaming plastics, would be a very soft detail. Like just, it wouldn't be as sharp or as clear. The detail would not be as easy to paint. But that's getting better because like Bones Black and then Bones USA, the plastics are getting generally better, but some companies haven't embraced like the Bones USA kind of plastic. It's a special machine and a special material, and it works in a specific way. But like I said, the Gundam kits and anime models tend to be done in the same stuff that Bones USA is being done in. So it's out there in the industry. It's the highest quality model kits tend to be styrene, like Games Workshop uses, or the Gundam type material like Reaper is using for Bones USA. But they're also a little bit harder they're more expensive and a lot harder to scale up to the point where you can make enough as a big company to satisfy demand. So that's what they're struggling with right now, is Reaper's trying to scale up production on Bones USA. So a lot of companies use cheaper options that don't give you as nice of a model, but still will be inexpensive to buy for the customer. And they feel it's enough detail. Up until recently, people were used to board game counters not being very high quality, but now that miniatures board games are so popular and people are so into painting the models, there's more of a push for high quality on miniatures games. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, in short. Yeah, resin printers vary in quality also, but the highest quality resin printers are very, very good, right? Yeah. Like I have this lady. Actually, let me grab my Werewolf Queen. Werewolf Queen is a resin print. She's from White Werewolf Tavern. And she's very nicely done. Like there, you can't see the lines, the print lines at all on her. She's very, very fine. This is what I always hoped that 3D resin printing would become like. So I'm very happy to see that is a thing. Yeah, resin printing definitely gives you as long as you can print at a high enough resolution, it gives you a very, very good result. Top notch, really. All right, so let's get some highlights in here. A little bit more highlights. Oh dear, we're almost done. We've got 10 minutes left. Yeah, I'm gonna hold off of more feline overlords or overladies for a while. Kroniko. I'm gonna stick with dogs, I think, until I get too old to have a big dog anymore. But I'm going to embrace my giant dogs while I can. Kiri, to be honest, wasn't that giant, so. And David is definitely trepidatious. He's like, this isn't going to be a giant dog, is it? I'm like, we're getting one from a litter that is not going to be huge. David is like the only prospective Shiloh Shepherd owner that's kind of like, I would rather not have a big one. Alrighty. So we're bringing in these lighter hairs, a little bit more detail, trying to suggest more strands and clumps to bring out the texture of the fur. And also coming up on the top here. Like I said, these tend to be kind of globulous, the strands of fur at the top, so we won't be able to do a lot there, sadly. Yeah, I mean, I had cats for years. I'm just like, I'm trying to like limit the number of living things I have to take care of at this point. Me and my significant other are good, and one puppy I can handle. I had so many animals for so long. I just need a break. But I do miss having a dog in the house, so. There. So we can, if it gets a little globby up top here, we can try to suggest some strands there. We pretty much are going to have to do some paint plastic surgery to get it to work. Kind of use darks to divide up the clumps and then do a couple of strands of light. And that will make it look more like fur and less clumpy. But a lot of these might not be wide enough to do that, or they might be really round. So you kind of have to go back and forth and try to make it. It's probably more work than it's worth, but if you're being persnickety about it, it'll be a bit of back and forth to make it look good. Alrighty, so when we get to the bottom, if you've got these rounded blobs kind of on the bottom of some of these areas, grab your dark and paint plastic surgery. So narrow it down a little. Either split it or just put paint over so it looks sharper, less globby. So it looks more real, more like fur. It's very hard to sculpt fur with like 3D sculpting, so sometimes you'll just get fur that's kind of a little bit suspect, a little sus, and you have to work with it to make it look better. But that's looking nice now that I'm like sharpening up these edges. It looks more like the texture I'm suggesting down here. We have about 5 minutes. So I'm going to just continue. I think I'll go back here and need to tackle the top up here. So you have a lot of clumpy, big clumpy areas. So first we're coming in and bringing in our darks to break up these areas. And then we'll highlight and suggest more texture. So this was a nice break from doing the skin. I'm still not sure how this color is going to play with the rest of the model, but we'll see. Sometimes you just like take a chance and you decide you're going to try to work with it. All right, so just bringing in the lighter paint again, trying to bring in some of these suggestions of strands. Because this is pretty rough back here, so. Very clumpy on the rear side. So we're just using very little paint on a brush. I'm thinning this. This is probably about a 4:1, I want to say. It's fairly thick because I want it to make a solid line so that these little strands really show up. If you thin too much, you'll get a more blended effect, but you won't get details to stand out. Not without several layers. So it's kind of a fine judgment call between I want to bring out this detail, but I don't want it to be just like little, I want it to kind of blend in, right? There, that looks pretty good. So that looks pretty good, actually, yeah. Now the biggest problem with this is just that it's the same shade, like the yellow and the paler gray blue are very much in the same like light dark category. But I'm hoping by going dark brown with the belt, really light with the skulls, you know, doing other stuff, and probably some red color accents. Since we chose this, that means we've kind of gone with a red, yellow, blue primary scheme. So since we're doing that, I'll probably do some reds and some red browns. And that should make everything work pretty well together. We also have some dark details here, so, and I can still bring this up another level if I want to. So I think it worked out okay. What do you guys think? We can also, if we feel like it's too blue at the end, we can also adjust it. My biggest problem with it right now is just it doesn't have, I think I want to make it go greener. A little bit greener in the highlights to reflect the color of the light here being so warm. That's my biggest thing right now, is that it's not working with this guy as far as the color. It's still very cool. And if you had a warm light like this, getting such warm shadows, you probably would run into that with this as well. So we'll maybe work on that a bit. That's a little more advanced, but I think it works. For now, it works. I need to also bring in the dramatic shadows like I've got them down here. Which I went away from because I wanted you guys to just see generally how to do this. So right now his loincloth is not reading with the same highlights and shadows as the rest of him. Which is, you know, an occupational hazard of being on Reaper Pro Tips. Sometimes we just have to demo the way to do a thing and ignore the fact that we're trying to do a cool lighting effect at the same time. So hopefully you guys had fun with this. Tomorrow is going to be Tiefling Day. I want to do the bone. Definitely gonna do the bone. Might do some gold. Maybe we'll work a little bit. Maybe we'll block in some freehand on the back. I'm not sure yet. Depends on how much time we have. I definitely want to get the bone in though, because it's going to be one of the lightest things on the model, and maybe block in some gold for the same reason. We also talked, I think, about doing a little bit of red orange down on some of these vials to carry that color down, down to here. And I'm gonna have to go like with an orange down here for the lantern as well. So yeah, there we are. Have fun with Crow's Nest. Sounds like Crow's Nest is on for later. Yep. Awesome with Christine. Fantastic. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you again tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Yeah, have a fantastic day, everybody.